Hey, so I read an article called Spell Check: How Teachers Keep Kids Letter Perfect by Allison Armstrong. It starts off by talking about a teacher named Jeff Gib- Gibson and how in his classroom he transformed spelling into something that the kids actually enjoy and look forward to. He does a lot of different sorts of spelling bees. He makes sure, though, that it's focused on keeping the competition between the teacher and the student. He doesn't want students to compete against each other because then it just leads to them being discouraged if another student does better than them. He emphasizes on how important accurate spelling is to learning to write well because it goes hand in hand with vocabulary. It brings up how good spelling is learned at such a young age, and it brought up the example of this 8-year old, how she gets new words at the beginning of the week to learn and then has a test at the end of the week. Um, it's also brought up how at such a young age we do have to be careful on when we do correct kids with their spelling. We do need to allow them, if they are little, to be able to invent their own spelling, because if they're pressured to spell every word correctly, it's going to slow down their process of learning to write and their process of learning new vocabulary. Children who not only work on language and vocabulary at school, but they also work on it at home have a bigger advantage. They're able to make connections and start having meaningful conversations and to see and hear words that allow them to grasp a better understanding. Because if they just use them at school, but they're not having intellectual, not even intellectual conversations, but not using these words at home, it just goes in one ear and it's just going to go out another. They're not going to use it and be able to embed it in their head. Um, we have to keep in mind, though, that each student does learn differently. There are different techniques that we can use for kids because what may work for one kid may not work for another. It brought up that how for ESL students there does need to be a lot of visual clues so that they can see. It can help them visualize the letters of the word, form the word together, and if they see it somewhere, they know what that word means. They know how to say it out loud. It allows them to build higher vocabulary by making connections. It says that students who um, remember things with, like, while using more than one sense um, will probably learn quicker. Um, this teacher brought up how he would have his kids, like, he would give them a word and then he would have them create three different other ways about it. So some kids would use a computer, some kids would type it out. There's just different techniques for different students. It brought up the technique of simultaneous oral spelling, which allows students to hear, see, and feel words as they print them out on paper. Um, Teachers do talk about how difficult it is to not correct students in spelling when they're first learning, but it is necessary to let them try it out themselves so they can feel comfortable using more words. If we emphasize spelling and point out the students' mistakes, they may feel ashamed of their mistakes that they're making, and it can discourage them to try to learn new complex words because they're scared that they're going to mess it up and not know how to spell it, or they're going to get in trouble. There does need to be a balance because at some point we do need to step in so that bad spelling habits aren't made. Because if a student thinks a word is written one way, but then he sees it on paper something differently, then it's just going to jumble it up in their head and they're not going to be able to make the connection with that vocabulary word. We want to find a way to correct students in a way that doesn't overemphasize their errors but allows them to feel comfortable. This article was definitely useful. I think it was important to learn that for vocabulary to grow, they do need to learn how spelling goes into it, and we can't stump their growth at such a young age. We do have to let them grow on their own.